My name is Catherine Mills. I was 22 years old when my boyfriend called me at 3 in the morning crying and saying he did not know where his parents were. I drove to his house immediately. I held him while he shook. I gave my phone to the police when they asked for it because I had nothing to hide. And then the detective came out of the back room and looked at me in a way I will never forget. Because my phone had just told them everything. Leave a comment if you have ever checked someone's location on Snapchat. Keep listening because what the map showed changed everything I thought I knew about the person I was sleeping next to. The Snap map, I want to start with who he was before that night. Not because I am making excuses for him, but because I think it is important for people to understand that the person I am describing was not someone who gave obvious signals. He was not erratic or volatile. He did not have a temper that surfaced in small ways before it exploded in a large one. His name was Daniel. We had been together for about a year and a half when it happened. We were both in our early 20s. He was studying aerospace engineering at a university about 40 minutes from my apartment. He was smart and funny and the kind of person who made things feel easy. His parents were ordinary, decent people who had worked hard and made a comfortable life. His dad was an engineer. His mom taught primary school part-time and kept a garden that she was unreasonably proud of. There had been one problem early on. I had found messages on his phone from other women. He said he had not responded to any of them. He said they were people from university who had his number and that nothing had happened. I chose to believe him because the alternative was losing something that felt good, and I was not ready to do that. But I started checking Snap Map. The feature exists on Snapchat to show the location of friends in real time. It is subtle enough that most people forget it is running. I checked it regularly without telling him. It became part of my routine. He would tell me he was at the library and I would check, and he would be at the library. He would tell me he was at his friend Marcus's place, and I would check and his Bitmoji would be on Marcus's street. It became reassuring in the way that habits become reassuring, not because they are rational, but because they give you the feeling of control. His parents had gone away for the weekend to visit relatives in the north. Daniel had the house to himself. I spent Friday and Saturday nights there and drove home Sunday evening because I had an early shift Monday morning. At 3 in the morning, my phone rang. He was crying before I could say anything. Not the gentle kind. The kind that comes out in waves where the person cannot speak between them, and you can hear them trying to get enough breath to form words. I asked what was wrong. He said his parents had not come home. They were supposed to be back by 10. He had been calling both of their phones for hours. Nothing. He did not know what to do. I was already getting dressed while he was talking. I drove to his house and we spent the next 2 hours on the phone with the police with his aunt, with neighbors going through the obvious possibility methodically until there were no more obvious possibilities left. The police took a missing persons report. 2 days later, they found remains in an area of woodlands several miles from the house. The test confirmed it was his parents. They had been murdered. I do not have adequate words for the days that followed. Watching someone you love destroyed by grief is one of the worst experiences of my life. I believe completely that he was destroyed. I sat beside him at the kitchen table while he stared at his hands. I answered the door when family members arrived. I made phone calls on his behalf when he could not speak. The police interviewed him multiple times. He answered everything they asked. He seemed cooperative and broken and genuinely lost. Then they asked for my phone. I gave it to them without hesitation. I told them I did not understand what they were looking for, but they were welcome to anything that helped. They took it into a back room, and I sat in the hallway for 20 minutes. When the detective came back out, his expression had changed. He asked me a single question. He asked me if I was aware that Snap Map showed Daniel at the location where the remains had been found on the night he told me his parents had gone out of town. I sat in that hallway chair and felt the entire structure of the previous 2 years shift. He had told me his parents were going away that weekend. He had been the one who suggested I drive home Sunday evening rather than stay another night. He had called me at 3 in the morning performing grief on the phone, having already known exactly what had happened to them and where. The snap map had been running the entire time. I had looked at it a dozen times that week, but I had not thought to look at it on Saturday evening when he was supposed to be alone at the house, because I had not known there was a reason to look. The data was stored. The location history was there. He had been in that woodland at the time he claimed his parents were alive and traveling. Multiple witnesses from the area confirmed they had seen him there. He was arrested 3 days after the remains were identified. The confession came out in fragments. He had failed out of university 2 semesters ago. He had been pretending to attend for over a year, leaving the house with a bag each morning, returning in the evening, maintaining the fiction entirely. His father had found out and scheduled a meeting with the university for the following week. He decided there was no other way. I have had to sit with the fact that he planned to use me as his alibi, that my testimony about his parents going away for the weekend was supposed to be the thing that directed the investigation away from him, that he called me at 3 in the morning, crying not because he was lost, but because he needed a witness to his grief, and I was the most reliable one available. I still check Snap Map when I am seeing someone. I do not know if I will ever stop, but I check it now not because I am worried about infidelity. I check it because I know now that the person beside you can be an entirely different person in the parts of their life you do not see. And the small digital record of where someone has been is sometimes the only honest thing about them. Help me. The second story happened to a woman I know through a mutual friend. She gave me permission to share it. I am going to call her Sophie. Sophie was in her 2nd year of university, living in the student accommodation, when she became aware that the girl across the hall from her was in a relationship that concerned everyone on that floor. The boyfriend's name was not important. What was important was the way he occupied space. Sophie had been in the hallway the first week of term when he appeared from across the hall and screamed at her for standing within his girlfriend's line of sight. She had not spoken to the girlfriend. She had not been aware of the girlfriend. She had simply been standing in the hallway with her keys in her hand. He told her if she looked at his girlfriend again, he would make her regret it. Then he went back inside. Sophie was shaken by this, but kept her distance. The floor became familiar with the pattern of him. Other residents gave the girlfriend's door a wider berth. The energy of that end of the hallway changed. Rumors moved around the floor. The girlfriend, whose name was Stacy, was considering leaving him. She had been in the relationship for 2 months. He already monitored her phone, checked who she had spoken to, demanded updates on her location throughout the day. Then one night, Sophie was woken by sounds coming from across the hall. She lay in the dark and listened and told herself it was just an argument, the kind of loud domestic conflict that student buildings occasionally absorbed and that ended on its own. She pulled the duvet up and waited for it to stop. It stopped after about 20 minutes. She fell back asleep. The next day, there was no sign of Stacy. Not unusual, Sophie told herself. People slept in. People skipped lectures. The day after that, still nothing. Stacy's door was closed. The corridor on that side of the floor was quiet. No shouting, no voices, no movement visible through the gap under the door. Sophie checked Stacy's Snapchat. The last story was from 3 days ago. She told herself there was probably an explanation. She told herself it was not her place to knock on a closed door and ask whether everything was all right. She went to her lectures. She ate dinner in the common room. She went to bed. 3 days passed this way. On the night of the 4th day, Sophie was lying in bed at 2 in the morning, unable to sleep. She had been trying to read and had given up and was on her phone looking at nothing in particular when a notification came in. A snap from Stacy. Stacy had never snapped her. They knew each other the way you know someone whose face you see regularly without having a relationship with them. There was no reason for Stacy to have her as a contact at all. Sophie opened it. The photo was of Stacy's face. Her eyes were swollen and her face was wet, and the expression on it was the expression of a person who is beyond fear, who has moved through fear into a state past it. The caption was 2 words: "Help me." Sophie called the police immediately. She was still on the phone with the dispatcher when she heard the officers arriving in the hallway, still on the phone when she heard the door of Stacy's room come open under the force of their entry. She learned what had happened over the following days from the officers and from what Stacy was eventually able to say. He had kept her in that room for 3 days. Her phone had been taken away at some point. He had given it back briefly, thinking she was doing what he told her. She had used a fraction of unsupervised access to open Snapchat, find Sophie's name in the app's suggested contacts based on proximity, and send a single photo before he saw what she was doing. 10 seconds of access, 1 photo, 2 words. The officers arrested him in the room. Stacy was taken to the hospital. Sophie told me the thing she carries from that experience is the 3 days. The sound she heard the first night and rolled over from. The 2 days of silence afterward that she rationalized as ordinary. The conversations she did not have with herself because she did not want to be the person who knocked on a door and was wrong about what she heard. She was not wrong about what she heard. She told me that if she had called the police after the first night, it would have been different. Not for the better in any dramatic sense. Stacy would still have experienced what she experienced on that first night. But the days after, it would not have happened. Sophie still lives with that distinction. Snapchat. Snapchat, Snapchat. The third story belongs to me. I want to tell it carefully because the person at the center of it was someone I was close to, and the outcome is something I have to live with. His name was Kyle. We had been best friends since secondary school. The kind of friendship that survives distance in periods of not speaking, the kind where you can pick up mid-sentence after 6 months of nothing and it feels like no time has passed. Kyle had started spending a lot of time with a man named Johnny about a year before everything happened. I want to describe Johnny accurately because I think the description matters. He was not someone who passed as normal on first meeting and revealed himself slowly. He was immediately and persistently wrong. His eyes moved too fast. His reactions were misaligned with what was happening around him. He made comments that landed in rooms like stones dropped from a height, the silence after them requiring everyone present to decide how to respond to something that should not have been said. I told Kyle several times that I did not trust Johnny. Kyle always said I was being unfair, that Johnny was just different, that he had a difficult history and needed patience. I gave Johnny patience because Kyle asked me to. Johnny repaid that patience by threatening people at random, by making jokes about violence that were not quite jokes, by standing slightly too close to every exit he was near. I did not like him. None of our mutual friends liked him. Nobody could explain why Kyle kept him around, and Kyle could not explain it either when pushed. One afternoon, Kyle snapped the group chat about a football match at his flat that evening. I had not seen Kyle in several weeks, and I wanted to. Even knowing Johnny would be there, I said yes. About 30 minutes before I was supposed to leave, a snap came in from Johnny directly. I opened it. His face lit from below by a flashlight. The expression on his face was not a performance of something disturbing. It was something more specific than that. The expression of a person in a state that had moved past language, a state where the face stops organizing itself into recognizable social signals and just shows whatever is underneath. The caption said he felt like stabbing someone. I sat with my phone in my hand and looked at that photo for a long time. I was trying to decide if it was a joke. Johnny's idea of humor was genuinely unpleasant, and something like this was not impossible from him. I was trying to decide if I was overreacting. A second snap came in before I reached a decision. Same expression, same flashlight. This one said he wanted to stab me specifically. I blocked him. I called Kyle immediately and told him I was not coming. Kyle said Johnny was just messing around. I said I did not care I was not coming, and Kyle needed to be careful around this person. Kyle told me I always overreacted about Johnny and he was not going to cancel his evening because I was being dramatic. I told him I was not being dramatic. I hung up. I put my phone on silent and sat on the couch and tried to stop feeling the specific tight feeling in my chest that had been there since I opened that first snap. I checked their stories a few times through the afternoon. Johnny had posted a series of selfies, the same unreadable expression captions about wanting to hurt someone. Then a video of himself standing directly behind Kyle while Kyle sat at his table. Kyle completely unaware Johnny making slow, exaggerated stabbing motions toward his back and laughing into the camera. I told myself it was his version of a joke. I told myself Kyle was right there in the frame and clearly fine. I told myself that if I called the police over a series of disturbing Snapchat videos, the response would be that it was not criminal to post unsettling content online. I forced myself to stop checking. I lay on my couch and fell into one of those exhausted naps that is not really sleep and from which you wake feeling worse. My alarm went off. I checked my phone. 23 messages from Kyle, sent over the preceding 20 minutes in a pattern that escalated from, "Hey, where are you?" to "please answer," to a string of texts that I did not read all the way through before the phone rang in my hand. I answered. Kyle's voice was not what I expected. Not fear exactly. The tone past fear, the thin, stripped-down sound of someone in a situation that has already moved beyond managing. He said, "Call the police. Johnny has a knife." I told him to run. I told him to get out of the flat right now. I was already looking up the non-emergency number and then deciding that was wrong and going for 999. I heard the call drop. I called back 4 times. No answer. I gave the police Kyle's address. I gave them everything I had, the screenshots of the snaps, the videos from the story, the timeline of the afternoon. The dispatcher stayed on with me while the officers were dispatched. I opened Snapchat because I did not know what else to do while I waited. There was a new video on Johnny's story. I opened it because I could not stop myself from opening it, and I have never fully forgiven myself for that decision, because once you have seen something, you cannot unsee it. Kyle was on the floor of his kitchen. Johnny turned the camera on himself. He was talking. He was laughing in the way of someone whose connection to the situation they are in has completely severed. I closed the app. I called Kyle's number one more time. I was shaking in a way I had not experienced before, a full-body tremor that made it difficult to hold the phone. I sat on the floor with my back against the couch and waited. The police arrived at Kyle's flat and found Johnny sitting on the couch waiting for them with an expression of complete calm. He did not run. He did not argue. He simply sat there. Kyle survived. I want to say that clearly because I need you to hear it before I tell you the rest. He survived. He was in hospital for 11 days and in recovery for months after that. The videos Johnny had posted to his Snapchat story were used as evidence. The snaps he had sent me were used as evidence. My account of the phone call and what I heard in the background was used as evidence. At the trial, I had to describe in detail what I had seen in those final videos. I had to watch the footage again in the courtroom. I want to be honest that the process of doing that, of having to articulate what I had seen frame by frame, caused a specific kind of damage that therapy has helped with, but not entirely resolved. I blocked Johnny's account the night of the incident and never looked at it again. His story has since been deactivated. Kyle and I still talk, not as often as before. There are conversations that we have not yet found the words for. There are silences between us that did not exist before that afternoon and that I do not know how to fill. What these three cases have in common. I want to close by saying the thing that connects these three stories. In the first story, the truth was sitting in a passive location data record that nobody had thought to check until the police had specific reason to look for it. Daniel had been at that location the whole time. The map had the information. Nobody was looking at the map. In the second story, the rescue happened because of a 10-second window and a 2-word caption sent to a near stranger via a platform both of them happened to have on their phones. There was no dramatic signal, no clear moment of access to help. Just a single photo sent through a gap in supervision to the person who happened to be closest. In the third story, I saw the warning signs clearly and explicitly. I saw the videos. I saw the snaps directed at me personally. I read them as disturbing but not credible enough to act on. I told myself I was overreacting. I went to sleep. The police, when they finished with me at the station that night, told me the timeline suggested that if I had called when I first saw the snaps, instead of when Kyle's phone call came in, the situation may have unfolded differently. Not certainly, but possibly. I have sat with that possibly for a long time. I am not saying that you are responsible for what disturbed people do. I am not saying that seeing warning signs means you are obligated to act under any circumstances and that not acting makes you responsible for outcomes. Those are not the conclusions I want to draw. What I am saying is this. When you see something that your body already understands as wrong, the voice that says you are probably overreacting is not a neutral voice. It has an interest in the outcome. It wants you to not have to make the difficult phone call. It wants you to not have to explain yourself to the police. It wants you to preserve the normal version of the situation for as long as possible. That voice is not your friend. Make the call. Let the professionals decide if it crosses the line. You do not have to know exactly what is wrong to say that something is wrong and that you are worried. That is enough. That is all they need to start with. The map told the truth. The photo sent in 10 seconds told the truth. The videos I saw before I put my phone down told the truth. The only question was who was paying attention and when.